Okay, if you've hopefully watched the first video about constraints, and if you've seen the little example of slightly more complicated constraints done using a system setup, this is the example which the guy, or a guy picks up a gun and shoots it a couple of times. Okay, now the thing about constraints normally is you can't animate the object that's constrained. I mean, obviously this one has bits of it that are animated, like the, like the when this I've actually forgotten the name of this in English. When this thing, part of the gun, pulls back and fires, but the gun is also animated in terms of the entire gun moves, and this would be very difficult to do if this was actually constrained onto an object. But there's a system that you can do this, which I'm going to show you. So I'm going to start with two objects, and then I'm going to show you how this relates to the gun. So normally what we were talking about before was just having one object and constraining it to this one. So to do this, we select this object, we would then select that one, and we go constrain, and we'll just do a parent constraint. Now I can then animate this object. See, I'm just going to move this up like this. Yeah. But if I want to animate this object on it, say I want to have it sliding backwards, I'm going to key this here. Now look at these here, they're blue here. I'm just going to see what happens. As soon as I press a key, you see I've lost the constraint. They've gone green and I've lost the constraint. So I can't use that as a way of doing this. I have to reopen this again because for some reason my Maya is not letting me undo any actions. So I have to keep on saving and resaving. Anyway, so get back to this. So that doesn't work. But there's a way around it, and that is you have to parent this underneath an object. And the most easiest way to parent this is using a locator. So I'm going to bring a locator in, create locator, which is like a null or an object. You can't actually see it. It's not a physical piece of geometry, but it exists in the scene. Now the locator, if I'm to look, it's exactly here. I'll show it here. Locators, if I go, I'll make it a bit bigger so you can see it. So I'll make it 20, and I'll just go wireframe so we can have a look. And there's a locator there. It's like a cross, yeah. Okay, so I'll go back to shade it again. Now what I'm going to do, just leaving the locator in that position, I'm going to parent this to the locator. So you select the child, then you select the thing you want to parent to, and you press P. I'll press that again, P, and you'll see that now the cube is beneath this locator. So now what I can do is I'm actually going to constrain the locator to this kind of flat, disky shaped thing. So to do that, I just select the select the sphere, the thing I'm going to constrain it to, then what I want constrained, which is a locator, and I'm going to do again a parent constraint. And here I'm going to make sure it's maintaining the offset, so it's in exactly the same position as it is here. So I'm going to go add, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this and I'm going to move this up like this to this side. I can move it up there like this. So you've got this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. Now you notice if I select the sphere now, there is no animation on it. So now I'm going to key this on this frame, and as it moves up, I'm going to have this sliding backwards. Like so. So we've got this kind of thing going on. So maybe I'll have it starting a little later. There's normally kind of a bit of inertia before these things start to move. Maybe a bit later still. What you normally find it happens with sliding objects, it takes a while, they kind of resist sliding, and then they might pick up quite quickly. So let's see, we've got something like that. And I'll maybe have it moving a little slower. So maybe like there. And then I'm going to have this switch. So this is still going back like this. So let's say that. I've got this going to 35. Let's see, maybe I'll take this, I'll make this to about 20 and have it switch again. So I can pull this back to 20. So I'll have it go like that, and then I'm going to have this switching the other direction, like it's kind of balancing plane. plates or something. So maybe around here like there, and I'll pull it over this way. Coming towards us is all a bit. So, woo, and I'll have this again. This is gonna now start sliding. So it might slide backwards a bit more, but anyway, we'll forget the ins and outs of all the physics for a little bit, just to show you the principles. So I'm making a key now, and then this is going to slide quite fast. You know, it's sliding almost off, so you got this. Actually, that's too fast. Maybe slide over there. And then I'm going to have this coming back up again on 35. Coming back up again. Let's see, so we got that going like this, this. I need it down like this, actually, not like that, like this. So like that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this coming up a little bit, but this is already going to be shooting off. So this one, if I was to open up my graph editor, it's kind of already going off this way. So let's see if I'm just going to push it a little bit further. And then on frame 44, I'm going to do that trick. So we've got this so far. Excuse the animation, it's not great. But on 44, we're going to do the visibility thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to key the visibility on here on 44. On 45, actually I'll key it on 43, key. On 44, I'm going to key it off. But before I do that, I'm going to duplicate this. So I'm going to duplicate this, and when I duplicate it, I'm going to go in and go edit, duplicate special. I just because I don't want this. I don't want the whole setup duplicated. I simply want the cube. And when I go into duplicate, I'm going to want to copy, and I want it under the world because I don't want it inheriting any of these constraints. When I get that, get cube 2 is exactly the same position in frame 44. The visibility here I'm going to key off. The visibility on 45 I'm going to key on. Yeah. And then for this cube here, I'm going to make sure that on 44 it's, I'm on 43, 44. I think I have to keep 40. I think I have to key these just a little bit down this way. I'm going to make it 43 and 44 is on. And this one here will make it off on 44. So then we have this. Now this cube now, which is cube 2, I'm just going to animate it coming off. So I'll have it going off. Maybe tumbling a little bit. So let's see. Oops, I have to get back a bit. I've got to. It's the only problem doing this, but my Maya is not undoing anything. So basically, I may have to go back and do this again. So I'm just going to get rid of this cube and do that one more time. How annoying, but anyway, it is what it is. I'm going to put this one on 45, so I'll make it visible. I'm going to duplicate special again, so I've got a new cube, cube 2. I'm going to key the visibility here on 44. I'm going to key it off on 43. I'm going to make sure cube 1 is the opposite, so it's keyed off on 44. Now what I forgot to do the first time is I'm going to make sure I key the translations and rotations on this where it is now, and then I'm just going to show you this is the start of a fall. I'm going to move it into 50, roll it slightly and drop it down. I'm just going to turn this to world so I can move it down in world space, so we've got this kind of thing. So this is very, and so yeah, and of course on 43 I'm going to have to make this invisible. So I go to visibility, you saw I hadn't, and turn it off. So then we have this. Yeah, ooh. Yeah, and it all looks, I mean, obviously the motion of this box is not, you know, you have to match it up to the original, so it looks consistent. But you know, that just takes a little bit of time. But you can see the principle is, you know, and of course I'd probably have this rotating again, so you'd have it going there, and then this would probably, as the box slides off, you may be having this coming upwards slightly. Yeah. And that is the nature of constraints. Now, if I go back to this one, what I've done is it's just one level up, as opposed to just having a locator and then having the actual pistol underneath a locator. I've also parented the geometry underneath an actual NURBS curve, which is just really, I guess it's kind of, normally when you're animating in the industry, you're always, you don't tend to animate geometry. You don't tend to animate on the geometry. You will tend to parent the geometry, in this case the gun, underneath something. So this, I turn the gun by, I don't select the geometry, which I have unselectable. I select this to rotate the gun, but I've parented this NURBS curve underneath a locator, and then the locator is what is constraining the gun to the hand as he picks it up. And also I noticed there was something rather strange with my wrist, because the rig's a little bit broken, and so what I did was I used constraints again to help me out. The wrist was deforming and I couldn't get it to fix, so I just constrained a bracelet onto his hand. And again, the bracelet is the same. If I show you the bracelet is the same thing. I made a circle to control the bracelet, and underneath that I have, this is Armani bracelet. I got this off Turbo Squid. I just grouped this and then parented it to a NURBS curve in order so I can move this around without actually touching the geometry. And then I parented that under the NURBS curve, which is constrained to this controller here. So it means that I can animate this. And you know, you don't need to put a NURBS curve on at this stage, but if you have slightly more complex geometry, it tends to be a good idea to get into the habit of using NURBS curves or puppet systems in order, you know, rather than animating directly onto the geometry itself. Okay. Oh, and one other thing I realized, one thing you have to, one thing you have to remember to do if you use geometry like NURBS curves and parenting your mesh underneath it, is always freeze the transformations of the geometry that you're about to use, you know, the NURBS curves you're going to use. Just to show you, I forgot to do it in this, but what I did was I used that trick of here, I simply brought in a new gun. You'll see I have another gun here, a second gun, which I can, when he swings it round in his hand, I actually just made this gun invisible and brought in another gun. So I realized I'd made a mistake with the mesh, so I used that trick of making one thing invisible. See, this is where the new gun comes in, and basically you don't know the difference. So I mean, it's all smoke and mirrors. So if you can get away with it, hopefully this is beneficial. If you're coming to you want to constrain something and have it move, which is very handy. You don't necessarily want things that are locked. Okay, thank you.